1. New U.S. tariff extensions explained, impact on trade and economy. 2. Trump extends tariff deadline to August 1, threatens new duties. 3. Trump announces 40% tariffs on multiple countries, what you need to know. 4. Trump imposes steep tariffs on 14 countries. U.S. trade policy update and economic impact. 1. New U.S. tariff extensions explained, impact on trade and economy. In a bold move to address ongoing trade imbalances, President Donald J. Trump has extended the modification of reciprocal tariff rates. Initially set to expire on July 9, 2025, the suspension of additional ad valorem duties will now last until August 1, 2025. This extension comes as several trading partners show sincere intentions to align with U.S. economic and national security interests. By Executive Order 14257, Trump declared a national emergency due to large and persistent U.S. goods trade deficits, which he deemed a threat to national security and the economy. The order imposed additional duties to counteract non-reciprocal trade arrangements. A key aspect of this extension is the temporary suspension of the 10% additional ad valorem rate of duty for products from certain trading partners, except for the People's Republic of China, PRC. For the PRC, a separate tariff suspension under Executive Order 14298 remains in effect. The modifications to the Harmonized Tariff Schedule of the United States, HTSUS, will affect goods entered for consumption or withdrawn from warehouse for consumption starting from July 9, 2025. Specific headings and subdivisions under the HTSUS will be suspended until the new expiration date. The Secretary of Commerce, the Secretary of Homeland Security, and the United States Trade Representative, among others, are tasked with implementing this order. They will work in consultation with various federal agencies and officials to ensure compliance with applicable laws and regulations. This extension underscores the administration's commitment to negotiating fair trade practices and protecting American interests. It also invites further discussion and potential controversy regarding the effectiveness of tariff measures in achieving trade balance. *** Questions for discussion *** Do you believe the extension of tariff modifications will effectively address trade imbalances? How might this decision impact U.S. relations with the affected trading partners? Are there alternative strategies that could achieve similar economic and national security goals without imposing tariffs? 2. Trump extends tariff deadline to August 1, threatens new duties. President Trump just threw a curveball at global trade. Here's what you need to know. In a shocking move that's set to send shockwaves through the global economy, President Donald Trump has announced plans to extend a key tariff deadline to August 1, while threatening new duties of up to 40% on certain countries. This decision has left many wondering what's next for international trade and the U.S. economy. But here's where it gets complicated. Trump's ability to impose these tariffs under the International Emergency Economic Powers Act is still under court review. This means that the fate of global trade hangs in the balance, as the president's powers are being challenged in the courts. On Monday, Trump published letters addressed to Japan and South Korea, threatening them with 25% duties on goods deemed to have been transshipped through their countries. Transshipping refers to the practice of offloading goods from one mode of transportation and reloading them onto another. This move is seen as a major escalation in the ongoing trade war. Later that day, Trump posted letters threatening duties of up to 40% on goods from Laos and Myanmar, as well as duties of 30% on goods from South Africa and 25% on goods from Malaysia and Kazakhstan. These moves have left many countries scrambling to respond and have sparked fears of a global trade meltdown. The markets have already begun to react, with the S&P 500 stock index falling by as much as 1% after the news broke. This is a clear indication that investors are nervous about the implications of Trump's actions. But here's the thing. The White House has been sending mixed signals about the importance of the deadline, with some officials downplaying its significance. This has left many wondering if the deadline is just a bargaining chip in a larger game of cat and mouse. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent attempted to clarify the situation, stating that the president is focused on the quality of deals, not the quantity. However, this has done little to alleviate concerns about the impact of these tariffs on the global economy. So, what comes next? The answer is far from clear. One thing is certain, though, the fate of global trade hangs in the balance, and the world is watching with bated breath. Some analysts are optimistic that the return of uncertainty may not weigh as heavily on stocks this time around. However, others are warning that renewed chaos could prove a setback for officials at the Federal Reserve, who continue to insist on keeping interest rates high. The big question is, what will be the long-term impact of these tariffs on the U.S. economy? Will they lead to a recession, or will they simply be a minor blip on the radar? Only time will tell. One thing is certain, though, the world is in for a wild ride as the trade war continues to escalate. Buckle up, folks. What do you think about Trump's latest move? Do you think it's a clever negotiating tactic, or a recipe for disaster? Let us know in the comments. 3. Trump announces 40% tariffs on multiple countries. What you need to know. The trade war just got a whole lot more complicated. In a bold move, President Donald Trump fired off letters to the leaders of several countries, informing them of new tariff rates that could go as high as 40%. But what's really going on here, and what does it mean for the global economy? Let's start with the basics. Trump's letters, sent to countries like Japan, South Korea, Malaysia, and South Africa, outline new reciprocal tariff rates that will take effect on August 1st. But here's the thing, these rates won't be applied uniformly. Some countries will face higher tariffs, while others will get a slightly lower rate. Take Japan and South Korea, for example. Both countries will face a 25% tariff come August 1st, according to Trump's letters. But what's interesting is that both nations are already talking about negotiating a trade deal with the US. In fact, Japan's Prime Minister Shigeru Ishiba convened a cabinet task force on Tuesday to discuss the implications of the new tariffs. But not everyone is taking the news lying down. South Korea's finance ministry, for instance, warned that if market fluctuations become excessive, the government will take immediate and bold action in accordance with its contingency plans. It's unclear what that action might entail, but it's clear that these countries are not going to take the tariffs without a fight. Asterisk asterisk, and this is where things get really interesting asterisk asterisk. Trump's letters also threaten to raise tariffs even higher if a country retaliates against the US with tariffs of their own. This could lead to a tit-for-tat trade war, with countries slapping tariffs on each other's goods. The impact on American consumers could be significant. The US bought $465 billion worth of goods last year from the 14 countries that received letters on Monday, according to US Commerce Department figures. Japan and South Korea alone accounted for 60% of that, shipping a total of $280 billion worth of goods to the US. Asterisk asterisk, but here's where it gets controversial asterisk asterisk. Trump's tariffs are not just about trade deficits, they are also about politics. The president has long been critical of countries like China, Japan, and South Korea for allegedly taking advantage of the US. And now, he's taking action. The question is, will it work? Some experts argue that tariffs are a blunt instrument that could end up hurting American consumers more than anyone else. Others argue that they are a necessary step to protect American industries and jobs. Asterisk asterisk, so what do you think? Asterisk asterisk, should Trump keep pushing ahead with his tariffs, or is he going too far? Let us know in the comments. The Dow closed lower by 422 points on Monday, as investors reacted to the news of the new tariffs. The S&P 500 and Nasdaq Composite also fell, posting their worst day in about 3 weeks. It's unclear how the markets will react in the coming days, but one thing is certain, the trade war is far from over. 4. Trump imposes steep tariffs on 14 countries. U.S. trade policy update and economic impact. Global trade shockwave. President Trump unveils massive tariff plan on 14 nations starting August 1st. Shaking up global trade relations once again, President Donald Trump has revealed an aggressive new tariff strategy that will impact at least 14 countries beginning August 1st, 2025. The announcement, delivered through an unconventional series of social media posts containing formal letters to world leaders, represents one of the most sweeping trade actions of his presidency. In a dramatic display of his America First trade philosophy, Trump shared screenshots on Truth Social of letters addressed to the leaders of diverse economies across Asia, Europe, and Africa. And here's where things get particularly interesting. Each country faces different tariff rates, seemingly calibrated to what Trump perceives as their specific trade relationship with the United States. The first wave of letters targeted Japan, South Korea, Malaysia, Kazakhstan, South Africa, Laos, and Myanmar. Hours later, a second batch appeared addressed to Bosnia and Herzegovina, Tunisia, Indonesia, Bangladesh, Serbia, Cambodia, and Thailand. According to these presidential communications, imports from Japan, South Korea, Malaysia, Kazakhstan, and Tunisia will soon face a substantial 25% tariff when entering American markets. South African and Bosnian goods will be hit even harder at 30%, while Indonesian products will see a 32% duty imposed. Bangladesh and Serbia both received notice of a 35% tariff rate, with Cambodia and Thailand facing slightly higher barriers at 36%. The steepest penalties were reserved for Laos and Myanmar, whose exports to America will be subject to a hefty 40% duty. Perhaps most revealing about Trump's negotiation strategy was the consistent language across all letters suggesting these rates aren't necessarily final. Each communication included language stating the U.S. might, perhaps, consider adjusting these new tariff levels, depending on our relationship with your country, a clear signal that these announcements serve as both economic policy and diplomatic leverage. These communications mark the first official notices before what was supposed to be a Wednesday implementation of his so-called reciprocal tariffs on dozens of nations. These would have returned to the higher levels Trump originally announced during his Liberation Day tariffs declaration on April 2. However, White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt indicated more letters would be forthcoming, suggesting a phased approach to this trade action. In a significant development later Monday, Trump signed an executive order extending the previous tariff deadline from Wednesday until August 1. The order explained this delay was based on additional information and recommendations from various senior officials, though specific details about this guidance remain unclear. Financial markets responded negatively to the announcement. The Dow Jones Industrial Average dropped 422.17 points, 0.94%, to close at 44,406.36. The broader S&P 500 fell 0.79% to 6,229.98, while the tech-heavy Nasdaq Composite declined 0.92%, ending at 20,412.52. For most countries, these new tariff rates closely mirror what they faced after Trump's initial April 2 announcement. For example, Japan was originally assigned a 24% tariff, and South Korea 25%, nearly identical to the current figures. Following significant global market turbulence, Trump had issued a 90-day pause on April 9, temporarily reducing various tariff rates to a uniform 10%. That pause was set to expire Wednesday before today's extension to August 1. Crucially, all letters emphasized that these blanket tariff rates operate separately from additional sector-specific duties on key product categories, meaning certain industries could face even higher effective tax rates. The letters also contain strong warnings about transshipping, the practice where goods are routed through an intermediate country to avoid higher tariffs. Trump's letters explicitly state that